Okay guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a new route which will end up being able to present a view, and then also how to create that view that we're going to display. So in our CRUD app that we've been building, I've decided that I need to display an about page. So what we're going to do is build out a new route which is going to be /about, and then we're going to use a handlebars template to display something on that page. So first things first, we need to actually create a router. So we can see that the routes are all inside of the routes file. There's a couple of good examples here. The index one is a pretty basic one, and all that is doing is getting the home page and returning that using the render method on the result to find the index handlebars template and pass this data through to it. So at the moment we've just got a title and it's saying express. We will change that information so that it comes through from here, and we can pass some information through to the about template. So we can use the index one as an example. So I'm literally just going to copy that and paste it in the same folder. Difference is though that we're going to call ours about.js. Before we get into this sort of thing, let's move back to the app.js file and actually set that to be used within inside of the app. We need to include it first, so let's do that. We're going to give it a logical name. It's the about page, so we're going to give it the about router page, a name of that variable. Then we're going to require it. Single dot means current folder, and then the slash means folders within inside of that. It is inside of our routes folder, and then it is the about file. So now we've got a variable that's called about router, and what we can do is use that in our route section here, and I'm just going to include it down the bottom. app.use. It's going to be under the about route, and then we're going to actually just pass through that variable, and what that variable is the about router. Going back to our about file now, this almost works exactly the same. In the case that it says slash here, what is actually happening is back in the app.js file, because we're using that particular router, which we've imported up the top here, it's coming from the abouts file within the routes folder. And on that about router, we've actually said that all of those routes are going to be underneath /about. That means that this main route inside of the about.js router is actually just going to be /about. So whenever anyone goes to that URL, they're going to be presented with whatever this function does. And at the moment, it's returning, it's not doing anything with the request, it's just rendering a handlebars template. At the moment, it's rendering index, and we don't want it to be doing that. We want it to be rendering a new layout. I'm just going to add some comments in here to make it a little bit more clear as to what this one does. Get about page. Then I'm going to change the name of this template. Instead of index, which is this file right here, we're going to use about. Okay, great. So Now, what happens if I start my app? What's going to happen if I go to that route? Okay, switch to Chrome. I can go to the main page and I can see that our app is loading, but then if I go to the About page, failed to look up view About in Views directory. It actually shows me where this Views directory lives, and I know that this is our folder name right here, so I can see that it's the Views folder. Inherently, that means that the view is not available. It doesn't exist. It couldn't find whatever we defined. And that's because we haven't actually created the file yet. So let's do that. About.hbs. Okay, great. It's got nothing in there. So let's put some dummy text in for now. How about we have a heading, and that's going to be about this app. Then we'll put a paragraph tag just for now and call it, give it some content. This is going to be the content of the About page. Okay, cool. Let's go back to Chrome and let's see what happens when we load this page now. Great. It's loading in this template. Now notice that this is the only thing that we put in our handlebars template, but it's still pulling through this other part here. Why is that? So if I go to the layout file, what I've actually done is included this H1 on every single page. And what that does is that will render the title of that page. So in our About file, I can see that it's rendering that express part there. So maybe instead of that, I want to actually call that About. Lastly, instead of putting the content into the file inside of About.js, I know I don't need that H2 anymore because that heading is already included on the page by default. What I want to do though is replace this content with something that is able to be passed through from the application. So I'm going to make a new handlebars wrapper here. This indicates anything inside of these handlebars curly braces is going to be a variable that gets passed through from our controller. So as we saw, title got passed through to the layout. Everything else will also get passed through to the actual handlebars template. So I'm going to write content. I'm going to replace that content in here. This is the content for the About page. Now if I go back to Chrome and refresh this page, after making sure that I save my file, and after I make sure that I restart my app, I'm presented with exactly the content that I meant